Hey legends, welcome back to Always All-Wheel Drive. What are we doing today? We are doing the ultimate gearbox service. So whether you have a Ford Territory or a BMW 7 Series, a Falcon, a Land Rover, anything that has the ZF6 HP26 transmission, this is your one-stop shop. I'm going to go through all the tools you need, all the parts you need to order, and most importantly, how to do it effectively and safely. So crack open a couple of cold ones or grab your tools and come along with me as we do the ultimate gearbox service. Let's go. The ultimate transmission service. Now, most mechanics will probably say, change your filter, change your fluid, and you're done. Wrong. To make these transmissions last the life of your car, you also have to replace a couple of extra rubber components and things like that. Everything you see here is all you need. Now, bear in mind, every car may be slightly different. For example, I have to take off my crossbar on this vehicle. On the BMW 7 Series, you have to take off the protective shield. So to get to your gearbox may slightly differ, but more or less everything you see for any ZF6 HP26 is applicable to you. So what fluid are you actually using? Now, in the past, a lot of manufacturers will say use the official ZF Lifeguard 6 fluid. I disagree with that. I've actually used and had great success with the Penrite ATF BMW fluid. I'm going to use that in the Territory. I'm also going to use that in my project car as well. You need at least 8 liters of that. You can get this at any auto parts store. Now you're going to need a way to actually put the fluid into the transmission. You use one of these bad boys. It's just an oil pump because you have to actually go under the vehicle while it's running, put the hose in and pump it in. So you're going to need one of those. Now that covers off the fluid section. Now we get onto the fun stuff. So you're going to want to replace your pan. Every plastic pan is actually replaceable. You can't reuse the same plastic pan because the filter is built in. But in my opinion, what a really good bush-proof upgrade is grab yourself a metal pan. So this is from URO, and this actually has a replaceable filter in it as well. So I can keep the metal pan every time I go and replace this in the future. And all I have to do is just replace the filter. So you're going to need one of those. Now I'm going to replace the Torx bolts with 10mm bolts as well, so that's going to make it easier for maintenance and servicing. So got some washers here as well. Now, most importantly, and this is what a lot of people miss when they do a transmission service, is the rubber components. There's approximately 6 rubber components, and these are really important. This is called the bridge seal adapter and the rubber adapters. I think that's the name of the other ones. And you've also got your electronic sleeve adapter as well. The reason why you replace them and the reason why transmission shifting does get sloppy over time is because the bridge seal adapter gets soft, cracks and perishes, allowing fluid. The whole transmission runs all on hydraulic fluid pressure effectively. So got your refillable drain plug here as well. I've got a spare one, but this also comes with it. Okay, so now we're going on to the tools that you need for this transmission job. So for the vast majority of cars, you'll need a way to take off the pan and to also take off the drain plug as well. To take off the pan, you'll need a T40 Torx bit. Now, because I'm replacing my Torx with 10mm bolts, I'm also going to need a 10mm socket. I'm also going to need an extension because it is quite low down there. You also need, of course, just a regular ratcheting spanner. There's nothing wrong with that. To drain it out, you're going to need a 10mm Allen key. Afterwards, to put the oil back in, you'll have to undo the drain plug. You will either need an 8mm Allen key or a T50 Torx. Either one of those. I've seen cars have one or the other. It seems to be being consistent with a ZF. For the Ford Territory specifically, there is a crossbar that is under the vehicle. You will need a 13mm bolt to undo that as well. So now that we've gone through everything that you need, now it's time to show you how to actually do it. So let's go. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is to remove the cross member on the Ford Territory. If you've got another vehicle, you might just have to remove the protective shield. So that this will allow us to get to the transmission itself. Now that we've got to the gearbox and the pan, you use your 10mm, you undo it. Now, because this is a plastic pan, this is only a one-use item. Make sure you do have like a pan ready. Now, transmission oil is quite nasty as well, so I should have gloves. I don't have gloves. Oh, I got it away a little bit. There you go. We'll just wait for this to drain. So Wait for this to drain out as much as you can. The reason I say that is because when you undo the pan itself, there is always going to be like some extra residual oil and stuff like that. You don't want that getting over you, because let me tell you, you'll be smelling this for a long time. Now the next step is to take off all of these bolts. So this is where I need my T40. Okay, there should be more oil coming out. There we go. Yeah, just always make sure you keep it on the front, attached towards the front of the car, and drop it down from the rear where the 10mm listening is. Therefore we can just get anything else out. Carefully pry it off. Be careful to empty everything into it when you can. And then what we're going to do is take this outside and inspect it. So what are we doing here? We're actually inspecting the pan for any bits of metal and imperfections. As you can see here, there is a little bit of like contaminants. I wouldn't say it's a huge amount, it's very tiny. I've seen worse on my 7 Series and that still ships fine. I'm not doing any maintenance on this because of any problems. I'm just doing it purely as a service item. With everything I'm seeing here at 270,000 Ks, frankly, I'm fine with that. Now, most people would stop here, change the pan, change the fluid, and away you go. No, we're actually going to go one step further and drop the valve body to replace the rubber bits I was talking to you about before. So let's get stuck into that. Because we are dealing with the transmission control module, I do recommend you disconnect the battery. There's 10 T40 Torx bolts under here. Make sure that this is supported as well, because this weighs around 15 kilos and you do not want this valve body dropping onto your head either. First thing you do, you pull this. Now be wary, 3 small bolts in the front that keep the solenoids and the transmission computer module in as well. And this is where you got to be very careful. Well, that's not what you're meant to do. You've got what's called your bridge seal adapter, and this is quite prone for getting compressed. You've also got these 4 little holes here, and over time these get compressed in. Now these ones are different sizes as well, so this is why it's important to drop the valve body, and while you're doing a service, to also replace these as well. Check this out, look how, yeah, that's very firm. You can also see how compressed it is. This is starting to not form a good seal, and it's actually quite firm. Now, I've seen other ones where this is actually cracked. So thankfully, this one isn't actually too bad. Now let's do a comparison to the one I'm going to install. As you can see, look at that. You've got much more sealing. It's not as compressed. And this is why it's so important, in my opinion, to replace these when you're doing a transmission service. It's a bit more of a pain dropping the valve body, but I highly recommend everyone does it. Make sure that it is actually the same. Once I had one that had that little notch there, and the original one did not. So before you replace anything, just double check and make sure that everything looks good. Now I can actually see that this one is missing its seal that was here, so it looks like it's actually broken off. So even more reason why it's important to replace these. This is your transmission valve body. This is the heart of your gearbox. And it's always interesting to see how this actually works. So the way the bridge seal adapter works is that it creates a pressure point here, and the other cylindrical things create pressures here. And so that's what helps actuate all your mechanisms and everything like that. So that's why it's important and critical that all of this works and works perfectly. And I'm glad that I'm replacing it, because it looks like my old ones were starting to perish anyway. We need something quite small to take out, so use a flathead as well. So just in here, and mark which ones go where, because each one is actually a different height. You don't want us to get stuck in there. There you go, look at that. So what you want to do is just make sure there's no residue in there. And then you place like for like with the other one. So here's a comparison. This is the old one, this is the new one. You can see how much more softer, and more importantly, if I put them at the same height at the bottom, look at that. So this is actually compressed. So once we do replace it, all shifting, everything like that should be improved because it's more pliable now. So this is like plastic, this is much nicer. So you just replace one as you go along. Now as you look at that, all new and good. There's a little nook up here, and the nook goes here. Just double check your mating surface, make sure it's all good. Perfect, perfect. Alright, as you can see, I am just coated in transmission fluid. Look at that, who needs a product? So what we've done is that now we've replaced the bridge seal adapter. We've also replaced the 4 rubber little tubes as well. This will make sure that all the shifting is fantastic. Now we're going to put the valve body back in. Now this is a messy job. One thing to be mindful of is just make sure that you put the park aligned onto this little mechanism here. This tells the gearbox what gear you're in, so make sure you actually just align this carefully. I don't even know where the camera is because there's so much going on. Coated in transmission fluid. So this one's a bit of an interesting one. You've got to be really careful when you put this in. It goes in this way, the small side in. You have a little locking mechanism there. So you carefully put it in, you rotate it until it gets into the transmission. Feel it just kind of slip in, and then Bob will be our uncle. Okay, so now that that's all in, the mechatronic seal adapters in, the bridge seal adapters in, and the 4 tubes are in now, we're going to start replacing the pan. There is a way to put all of them on. It is a 10 Newton meter torque for all the bolts, and you start in a crisscross direction as well. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put an image of the exact way to do it. So here it is. You're more than welcome to screenshot that. So what's always important to do as well is just clean the mating area, make sure that there's there's no dust, there's no dirt, there's no anything like that, and then you start in a crisscross pattern from the inside out. So let's get stuck into it. Alright, so now that the pan's on, everything's all been tightened from the inside out, you've got to actually top off the fluid. This is where this comes in. So what you have to do is that you have to pour your fluid into here. I'm going to elaborate a bit more on this process. What I did was, before even starting the car, I pumped up as much fluid as I could until there was a steady stream out. Then I got my missus into the car, and as she's shifting gears, that's pumping the fluid throughout the transmission, and you got to keep pumping. So that's where we're at now. So the last thing we have to do is to get yourself a lovely assistant. In this case, it is my wonderful fiance behind the camera. What we're going to do is I'm going to go under the car with the pumping fluid to keep pumping while she shifts into every gear. So the car's still pretty cold. She's going to hold it in drive for 3 seconds, then neutral for 3 seconds, and park for 3 seconds, so on and so forth until there's a gentle dribble out at the bottom. So you just keep doing that when the car's cold until there's a gentle dribble. I'm all ready to go, so let's do this. And there you go, legends. That's how you do a 6-speed transmission, not just service, but enhancement. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. If you want to stay up to date with any more tips, tricks, off-roading, things like that, hit that notification bell. If you like what we're doing, really appreciate if you hit that subscribe button, and hopefully next time we join you, we'll be doing a bit of off-roading back around Lithgow. So really keen for that. Can't wait. Until next time.